Imagine this, you have just launched an amazing web application and suddenly you notice a suspicious pattern. A malicious actor is trying to hack into user accounts by repeatedly guessing password. With no safeguard in place, this attacker has unlimited attempt to eventually find the correct password and compromise your user's sensitive data. What is missing here? It is user lockout. So in today's video, we are diving deep into user lockout with ASP.NET Core identity in .NET 8 Web API. It is a very crucial security feature that protects your application from brute force attack. Here is how it works. After a user fails to log in a certain number of times, in this case 3 attempts, they will be locked out for 5 minutes, preventing further trials. Why is this important? Think about the scenario we just discussed. Brute force attacks where hackers repeatedly guess password are one of the simplest but most common threats online. Without a lockout mechanism, attackers have endless opportunities to crack your user's passwords. By implementing lockout, you slow them down, giving your users a layer of protection and a peace of mind they deserve. So in this simple video, I'll walk you through how to implement user lockout in your .NET 8 Web API using identity. We will also set up so that after 3 failed attempts, the user gets locked out for 5 minutes. Let's jump into the code and add this simple but powerful security feature that every application should have. I have already made 2 videos prior to this, and that is email confirmation and password reset. If you haven't watched these videos, they are amazing, so you can check them in this video description. You're going to find them in there. For the sake of our newbies who are just watching this video and haven't watched the previous one, I want to start everything afresh so they can see from start to finish. But while you have a knowledge in that, if you've watched my previous video, it is the same thing that we're going to do, just that when we're going to implement the user lockout feature in addition. So you can change the timestamp and click on it to skip to where necessary. Let's get go. So make sure you have your Visual Studio 2022 or higher launched. Create a new project. So create a new project, give it a name. It should be Web API. So this is demo user lockout with identity. That is my project name. Choose location, click on next, then click on next to create this project. Finally, create it. Once our project is created, we need 4 packages to handle this. That is JWT Bearer, Entity Framework Core, Identity.UI, SQLite, and Tools. You can decide to go in for an SQL Server. Since this is a simple application, that is the reason why I am using an SQLite. So you can also use this for trial purpose. Alright, so let's go and install them. You can right click on dependencies and go to manage NuGet packages and type in the name to get them installed. Or I have the packages references, so I need not to install them again. I can go ahead and I'll restore them. I'm going to do mine, you should do yours. I'm going to right click on this project, then go to unload. Then once I have the settings here, I can go in there and I'll pass in my packages. So what are these packages I mentioned? I'll just grab them. I have them here, so I'll just grab them and paste them as you can see from here. So we need to install ASP.NET Core Authentication.JWT Bearer for our JWT authentication. Then we need Identity.Entity Framework Core for our identity manager, and also for our Identity.UI, so we can have access to specifying the lockout and etc. Then we have an SQLite for database and our tools for migration. So I believe you know this. If you don't know, now you know. Alright, so save this and let's restore these packages. So right click on the same project, go to restore project with dependencies, and it's going to get them installed or restored successfully. Great. The next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create a DB context. That is how we're going to implement our identity DB context, which is coming from the entity framework call. So right click on the project in here. Now let's click on folder and let's give it a name. I'm going to say data, and here I'm going to create a class. I can name it as app.db context or whatever DB context. You can give it any name at all that you want. So app.db context. Now this app.db context inherits from a default class that is known as identity DB context. So this takes in identity user. So with this, we need to use EF call to get this namespace added. Yeah, so use entity framework call. Now let's create constructor and pass in an option to this. So control period gives you an option. Let's go in for that. And from this option, let's specify our DB set that we have just created. Once this is done, we go to our program.cs file and register our database connection as well as our JWT settings and our identity settings. So let's do that. Go to program.cs file and let's do this magic. So in order to handle the database, we're going to say builder.services.add DB context, app.db context, that is the name. And this needs an option. So this option .use SQL license, that is what we need. And now here I can specify my database trait. So data source is equal to auth.db.db. Terminate this. So we are done with our connection. The next thing to do here is our authentication. So let's handle it with builder.services.add authentication. Now this authentication, we need to also specify an option to that. And now this options let's have the scheme specified. So we're going to say default scheme. So we have a default authentication scheme. This equal to, we have JWT bearer default.authentication scheme. Let's make a copy of this 3 times. We can terminate each. And now when we come here, this we need default scheme. So default scheme, and the last one is challenge scheme. So default challenge scheme. Now that we are done with this, let's go and add JWT bearer itself, which also takes in an options. Now with this options, we're going to save token. Let's set this to true. We're not going to validate audience and validate user because you're not consuming this in any client. So you want to skip that. That's for development stage. Now for production, this is very crucial, right? We are not also going to implement any refresh token, so we're going to also disable that. But while you can go ahead and implement that. If you want to get them implemented, I have several videos concerning or talking about how to implement refresh token. You can take this playlist and it got a lot for you. Okay, so we have this save token to true. Then the next thing is we have our token validation parameter is equal to new. Then let's pass in, that's a new token validation parameters, and in here we need to, let's say, validate audience, set this to false. As I told you, we are not. Then validate issuer, set this to false, we are not. Then validate issuer signing key, for that one we're going to set to true. Then we need to set required expiration time. Let's set this to false. Then validate lifetime. Let's set this to false. Now let's specify the issuer signing key. Since we have specified, we've set it to true. Let's specify the signing key. And now this signing key is equal to new symmetrical security key. Let's pass in encoding. This time around, we're going to be using an UTF-8. So encoding, which coming from system.test. So make sure you include that namespace .utf8.getByte. Now you can see you can use the ASCII, you can use getByte. No, that's the UTF-8. This we want to use the UTF-8. You can use ASCII or UTF-8. Okay, so when you use the UTF-8 to encrypt or get the token here, when creating the token, when you use the UTF-8 for your settings here, when you're creating the token for the user, you must use the same thing, else it cannot validate it. So take note. Now with this, we need a random string which is very, which should be secured, a private one, but this is public to everybody. So this is mine. Then we get our for our sign-in key. Great. So now that we have this, what is the next thing that we're gonna do? Let's go ahead and register our identity manager, identity settings. So we're going to say this builder.services again .add default identity, which takes in the identity user model, and aside from that, it also takes in an option. So let's specify this option, and now here we're saying that this option we have lockout. Then with this lockout, we need to set, there are some few properties that we can do. The first one is let's set it active to all users. So allow for new users. So this is true. It means anybody who tries to create an account, this setting is going to take effect from you. So we need to make this happen. Aside from that, we need a default lockout timer span. When you are locked out completely, how many seconds, how many minutes, how many hours, how many days do you want to last before we give you another chance? So let's see, we have an options.lockout. I think this should be a terminator. Yes. So options.lockout. Then here we're going to talk about default lockout times out span. Now we're going to say this is time span from minutes. We said that we're going to make it as 5 minutes. So let's have a 5 minutes here. Now the next thing is we have an options.lockout, and the next thing is maximum failed. So how many attempts do you want to implement here? We said in our introduction that we're going to allow 3 attempts. So let's make this happen. After we are done, we're going to say add entity framework store, pass in your DB context. So app DB context, which holds your DB set. Then let's go in and save this, terminate the last end, and that is all. We are done with our settings. Control KD, freeze it well, and now save. We can go ahead and now rebuild this project. Once this is built, let's go to our controller and go ahead and implement it. We are not creating, as I did in the previous videos, we are not creating any service or any repo for that. We're doing everything in the controller to make it simple for everybody, whether you're a newbie or you have a knowledge in that. This is going to be simple for everybody. So if you want to create a service for this, you can create your interface and implementation in a separate class and interface. You connect them, you register them by adding a scope or singleton, then you can inject it in your controller and now work with this. It also same as what you're going to be doing. But well, for demo purpose, let's go and do everything in the controller. So let's remove the default ones that we have here. We're going to rename the controller. You can also create new controller and use that. But when I have one here, I don't need to create new one since I have already created. Let's go and rename this controller, and that is account controller. So here we're going to have 2 endpoints. The first one is an HTTP post, which is going to be for registration. So register. Now for register, we need a user email and we need password. I believe you're saying that, whoa, confirm password. When you consume it in client, that is where you need your confirm password. But here we need email and password to handle that. This should be a public async task, and now let's use an iAction result, so we did not to specify any return type. Then let's say this is register and pass in our email as parameters, email, and our password as well. So here you open it, and now in the body, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to say that we need to inject our user manager first. I nearly forgot that. Have you done yours? So let's say this is user manager, passing identity user. Then let's say this is user manager. Now let's go ahead and then create this. So you're going to say that this is results, or well, we can return just straight. Okay. Now with this, okay, whether it's successful or not, you want to return the response. That is what you want to do. Okay. So here we can say okay. Then await. We have user manager dot create async. Now specify in here as new identity user, because that is what you want to create for. And let's specify username as the email coming in. We need password as the password coming in. Then we need email as the email coming in. Now this is what we need. We can actually go a step further and add a lot in here, but let's maintain this 3. After that, you need to specify the user password. So that is a password here. Then let's close this. So that is what we are returning, and this is going to get the account created. If it does, it's going to give you the response. If it couldn't, you'll also see the response. So we are done with that creating of an account. Now let's go and log in. So for login, it's going to be another HTTP post. Now with this HTTP post, let's see this one. We need to specify the route. That is also login, which takes in same email and now same password. And this should be public async task. Let's maintain the iAction result type, and let's say this is login, which takes in your email as first parameter and your password as second parameter. Now the next thing that we need to do here is we're going to check. So let's get the email. Let's check account from the user. Let's see, do we have this user registered already? In case we have, then we can proceed and generate a token. But in case it is we don't have this user, then you know what's going to happen, isn't it? But before we check this user, we implement this user, we want to check if this user is not locked out. Because if you are locked out, we don't want to be calling our user manager before we getting user and password, before we go ahead and verify. We want to verify for the first start. That is the first step that you should go through. We check if you are not locked out. You know, we are locking user out for 5 minutes. So within that 5 minutes, if you want to make another request, we want to check for the first time if you are not locked out. If you are, then we don't need to proceed. We can return a message straight to you, unauthorized, or whatever response that you want to do. You go ahead and do that. So it's necessary to check that. Okay. So this is what you're going to be doing. We're going to say that here if. So if, then we can go ahead and now say await this user manager dot. We can have a lockout async. Then we pass in this user. So this is going to be an await. Let's have a private method to handle user retrieval. So because you're going to be using that method frequently, so I think we can do that. It's a task which returns an identity user. Let's make this as null, and let's say this get user, which takes in email, and now here we want to return await, which is user manager dot find user by email, and I'll specify the email that we have. Okay, so now that we have this, we can go ahead and call this. So get user, and I'll pass in this email. So here we are checking if this user is not locked out. In case this user is locked out already, then we want to return unauthorized. So you don't have access to this straight. You don't want to proceed. So that's what we are doing here. This needs one closing. Okay, So but this, if this user is not logged out, maybe this is the first time with this user logging in, then we're gonna skip this, get the user, and I'll check the user password. Okay, so let's see if this user password is okay. We want to verify the password and see, because here we're going to find the user, but in case we have it, well, in case we don't, then there's no need for us to check the password. So this method will handle that. So we're going to say that if, then we can check if this is false. Then we're going to say that await user manager, this user manager dot check password async. So we need to specify this user, and now we can call this await get user. So get user passing the same email. You can create a variable to store this user, and I'll be calling it here and there, but well, you can also pass it on through this method like that. Then aside from passing this user, what else again do we need? We need the current password. So this is the password, we have it in here. So if this is false, then we want to, meaning we need to start counting the user lockout. Remember that we said we are giving 3 attempts to the user, so we need to start counting them. How do we do it? We need to first increase the lockout count, and we can do that by using asset field API from this user manager. So let's have that, and now within here we can say that if this is this works, if you're able to count it, if you're able to move +1, that's why we want to perform this. Now we are saying await user. So we have an await, we have a user manager dot, then we have access field async, passing this await get user, and I'm passing the email. So this is going to increase this user, okay, the failed attempt. So with this is going to return identity result. So in that we can check for if it is success. So in order for us to check that, we need to have another closing like this. So we can check for success. Then, so if this is succeeded, let's see if we can get it from here. So in order for us to not to make things complex, we can cut this out from here. Then we can make it as a variable. So let's say this is increase count. So increase count is equal to, we have an await user manager dot asset field. Then we get this user, which will increase the count. Now we're going to check if this is true. So if this is true, what do you want to do? Then we need to proceed, and we want to get the retry or the remaining try attempt. And I'll tell this user, you have 1 remaining, you have 2 remaining, you have 3 remaining, right? That's what you want to do. So in that, we have another API to get this for us. Let's see how we can deal with that. So we're going to say that this is going to return remaining attempt. So I'm going to say this is remain attempt, and now this equal to, we have an await, we have a user manager. Then we can have get remain attempt. We have this endpoint at our disposal, so we can use that. So user manager dot get access field count. So here we can pass in this user. So await get user. Then let's pass in the email. So we can get this count here. Now after we receive the count, what can we do? We want to return, so return remain attempt. If it is equal to 0, then we want to return unauthorized, and I'll tell the user that no retry attempt remaining. So you can actually put in a custom message, but well, for the sake of our demo, let's put in something like that. So no retry attempt remaining. Else, what do you want to do? You want to return the same unauthorized. Then this, let's have our string interpolation here, and now you're going to say the total attempt that we specified was 3, right? So this is going to give us the remaining attempt. So we're going to say 3 minus this remaining attempt, and I'll tell the user that, hey, you have this remaining login attempt. So we have this, and we can return this nicely. But in case this is not successful, that is when increasing the count, then it means something happened, and in this case you want to return no content. Although you are trying to log in, but you're going to get no content from the server because something happened. You can customize this and return internal server error and whatever. You can actually add more. All right, so let's see now. Here we're going to check, that is when the password password is not does not sync with the user email. That is why we are handling this. Then the next thing that we're going to do here is, let me close this before we run into problems. Okay, so we get our, this is increase count. So increase count. So increase count dot succeeded, that is what we need. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is, this should be, that is when password check is, this is when this is false. That is why we are doing this. But in case it is true, what can we do? It might be that, or it could be that the user had 3 attempts. The user exhausted 2 of the 3 attempts. So as I speak, the user has now gotten or checked the password. He now has the correct password. So the 3rd attempt, the user was able to log in. In our database, we have lockout attempt 2 for the user. So the next time that the user logs in, as soon as the person tries the first one and he couldn't, it's going to get this person locked out. And we don't want this to happen. As soon as you want to access it, we want to make sure that you have 3 attempts. So it means as soon as the user logs in successfully, we need to reset the lockout attempt from 3 to 0. Let's do that. So from this here, let's reset it. So we're going to say, so reset attempt. Then with this, we're going to be using await user manager. Now with this user manager, there's also an API known as reset access field count. Okay, passing this await get user, then passing the email. Now this is going to clear it, whether it is 1, 2, it's going to set it to 0. After that, we can check if this is successful. So we can say that if this reset count or reset attempt dot succeeded, then we want to maybe return okay with our new unstructured return type. And here we're going to specify new, and then here let's make sure we have our login successfully. And also we want to have generate a token, so return this method. This method is going to return string, so we can pass it on straight ahead like that. So generate token, and I'll pass in this user. So do you have this user? Then we can just have an await get user, and I'll pass in this email. Okay, else what can we do? We want to also return, that is if it couldn't, return no content as well. No content. So let's go and generate this method. Now this method is going to come out with the token. So let's generate it, which takes in an identity user, and I return a string type. So let's save this. Now in here, we need to get the key or create our key, which is our byte. And we can get this key from our special private string that we use. In this case, in this tutorial, it's not private anymore because you can see that, right? By normal sense, it should be a private one. That you should keep it secret. So let's go ahead and handle that. So we first have to get our credential, and I'm going to say this is our credential. So this credentials, we're saying this equal to new sign-in credential. And on this sign-in credential, we need a security key, and also we need our security algorithm. So security algorithm dot, you can use the HMAC 256. And now for our key, let's go ahead and implement our key from, let's use new symmetric security key. So new symmetric security key. And now with this key, we need to use encoding, which is coming from system.test. We use UTF-8, so we need to repeat same dot. Then you want to get byte. Now with this byte, let's go and grab our token. So this is our strength, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so that is what we have for our key. Now the next thing that we're going to do here is we need to create our claims. So let's have our claims set. Now this claims equal to new. So maybe if you want to add more, that's the reason why I'm creating it as an array. You could add more to this. But with this, I'm going to have only one claim. And now with this claim coming from system dot, let's say it's coming from the system.security.claims. And now with these claims, we need to specify JWT registered claims name. So JWT registered. Are we getting that? We are not getting that. JWT registered claims names, unless we are done. Claims names, which is coming from, or which should come from, let's say there's using system.identity models or token.jwt. So dot, and now here we want to prefer only this email. Okay, now with this email we have this identity.email. So this is what we need for our claim. You can add more to this, but well, let's maintain only one. Then we can go ahead and return our token. So new JWT security token handler. There's a method which takes in an endpoint of write token. Now with this write token, we need to now specify our token. So in here, we're going to say new JWT security token. And now with this, it takes in some parameters. The first parameter here is an issuer. You know, with the issuer, we did not specify that. So we let's set this to null. We go for an audience. We did not also specify audience. So we set this to null. We go for our claims. And you know that here our claims, we made our claims specified. So we have it in there. Then the next one that we're going to talk about here is expired. Now for an expired, we did not set an expiry date, so we want to return that. And our last one, we have our sign-in credentials, and then here we have our credentials created. Okay, so credentials, we have it already, and now this is going to return this token to the user. All right, so everything is set and done. Let's save this. Let's rebuild this project, and let's run and check it out. So you can see we have one succeeded. Now let's go ahead and run this project. But before you run it, I think we forgot to migrate this. Have you done yours? Okay, so if you haven't, then good job. You can go ahead and run it and everything's going to work. Let me do mine, and then we do it together. You can even wait for me so that when I'm done, then both of us will run it and check it out, isn't it? That's great. So add migration. Give it a name. That is first for mine. So that is done. Let's update the database. Okay, so you can see here we have it created, and that's great. We are done. So let's go and give it a run. So length, we are having an issue here from this, and I believe the issue was, oh, okay. So this should close and see what we did. This should move out from here, and I believe you did not do same, isn't it? So this should come here like that. It should register in a service, talking about the JWT and also the identity. It should be in a separate service. And I think this solves the problem. And well, my endpoint is ready. What of yours? Is it ready? Now let's go and create an account. So we're going to register, and this is going to be an admin@admin.com. Password is admin@123. Now let's see. So we execute this to create an account. We're going to have success. By all means, we must have that. So the response or the result is ready. Let's go and check it out. Oh yeah, so succeeded is true. Now we have this account created. Let's go and log in and check it out. So from this login, we are not going to log in for the first time. Let's say we have forgotten a password. So instead of 123, let's add 428. Now this is a separate or different password altogether. Now when you run this, let's check it out. So you can see that's 401 unauthorized. We have 2 remaining attempts. Now let's try another one. Hey, I forgot my password. Now we have 1 remaining attempt. Now if I provide the correct password and I log in again, now it's going to get the reset. It's going to clear that and I'll reset it to 0. I have my token. Now let's go and log in again, pass in another one, wrong one. Then we see we have 2 main attempts. So this is working perfectly. Now let's try and consume all the 3. Now check it out. No retry attempt remaining. Now if I click on execute, let's see what happens. Unauthorized. Let's go and provide the correct password. Execute this. We still have the same. Although we are providing the correct password, but we are locked out. How many? How much time did we specify? That is 5 minutes. So can you wait for 5 minutes? Try again, and boom, everything's going to work. And there you have it. So by implementing user lockout, you have added a vital layer of security to your .NET 8 Web API, protecting your application and your users from brute force attacks. With just a few lines of code, as you saw, you have empowered your application to automatically lock users out after multiple or 3 failed login attempts and give them a cooldown period before they can try again. You know, security is never something to take lightly, and lockout is just one piece of the puzzle. Whether you are building a small app or enterprise level systems, features like this make a huge difference in keeping attackers at bay and safeguarding sensitive information. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your fellow developers, and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, drop your questions or feedback in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, happy coding, and see you again.